We're going to conclude here on this final segment of some further thoughts about pursuing winning as a goal, as a problematic motivation. Here's how it plays out further ways in the sports setting, really frankly between coaches and players, is in playing time. Playing time is a huge issue. It's a huge issue for parents. Obviously at the lower levels more because parents are more involved. As you come up the food chain, it becomes less involved. Obviously with professional athletes, it's virtually non-existent because they're adults. But when they're little, people are more engaged. And one of the standing jokes about coaching for those that do youth sports or even up to high school is just the issues they got to deal with parents. Well, fascinating for me as primarily a college coach, I know of, I'm going to think one for sure, 2 times max in 25 years of full-time responsibility in college coaching was a parent ever a factor at all that even came across the plate that I can remember. And so it's just, that'd be an example of the gap between parent inappropriate involvement that seems to have this dividing point from high school to college. Of course, college might be because they're not home, they're not in the home, they're away some generally, and so they have less access just because of geography and practical ramifications, though they certainly could text and could email nowadays, which they wouldn't have been able to do a couple decades ago. That being said, playing time is a huge deal. So now I am here as a coach, and this is where I find it being applicable, is when the team is way ahead and way behind, who do you play and how much do you play them? It's in my observation experience, it's very problematic how, because people want to win, and they want to win by a lot if they can. I'm talking about in the Jesus community. That people, remember that your backup has practiced as much as the starter. And frankly, everybody is on the court or the grass or the mat generally the equal amount of time. Some of those guys play all the time. Some of those guys don't play. Some of the guys always will play all the time if they're healthy. Some guys will never play, depending on the league. And of course in the youth sports they mandate getting kids in for a couple innings sometimes or that kind of thing. Once you get to junior high or high school, that may not be applicable, and a guy could be on the team and never play the whole year. And what we're saying as a Jesus guy, if all you care about is outcome, and if the outcome is decided, why not give those players that don't play as much or as all an opportunity? Why wouldn't you, hypothetically? Well, the reasons that I can think of off the top of my head is we may not finish strong. That's true. You may not finish strong in terms of the scoreboard, but that doesn't mean you can't finish strong biblically, because those kids may be more ferocious competitors than the guys with more talent. So if your barometer is finished strong as if the scoreboard will be closer at the end, then that's true. But it's not true if you have it within our philosophy. And if all you care is about outcome, when you're up by 30 points with 3 minutes left, or when you're up by 50 points with 7 minutes left, let's be honest, the outcome's probably not in question. And what are you concerned about? That your players need some rhythm or ability to sustain their play. So if I only have them play half the game, then they're going to be less capable in the games in the future when we aren't ahead a lot. Well, there's a fairness to that, but there's also a part where you're making an excuse because they played half a game or 2.5 quarters, and you're now up by gobs of points. And allowing a few of your players to start to intermix in is maybe a good thing, because maybe those backups who might have become starters if somebody gets hurt would have some validity in them getting some game time. I know of some teams that happened just this year where a team that was very successful and won their particular league at whatever level, I'm not going to allude to it, that they did not play other people. They just didn't. And then they got caught in the playoff series where they had to play people that didn't have experience in the heat of the action, and now at the end of the year in kind of tournament or playoff kinds of rounds, and people that could have been worked in absolutely the whole way got very little work, and now they're not game ready. Well, any way you cut it, practice is different than a game in some fundamental way, with all kinds of factors that we're not going to debate that. And so you're not even helping the team's end goal, let alone those are human beings. And at the lower levels, they have parents. and grandparents and friends who came. Do you know how embarrassing it is for a kid? I always felt like this way, even in college as a college football coach. I want every kid to have a grass-stained jersey. There's nothing more embarrassing for a player than in football to have a completely clean jersey here in the postgame. It's clearly obvious you didn't get in the game as other people are disheveled and muddied or now with field turf you don't see that anymore. But you get the point. They give them an opportunity to play. They're the poor and the powerless on your team. They never play at all, or they never play much, or they only play for 3 plays. You're ahead a lot. The game is not in question, the outcome. To intersperse people, give them a chance to feel the pleasure of a result of all their preparation. It is shocking and grievous to me. And I'm thankful that at some points my sons didn't play at all in youth and in college, and some points they played a lot, so I could feel what people feel as players. I'm glad that I was a walk-on in a scholarship school. I'm glad that I have a frame of reference for the guy who never plays. I remember a coach one time said to me, "Go stand out there and be a cone." I've never forgot it. It impacted me. It caused me to stumble at that time. I've moved beyond that, thankfully. But it caused me to stumble. What does that feel like? And the hard part for me as a player is I was more disciplined toward the team goals than these guys who were much better players than me. So I knew they were out drinking and partying and doing stuff opposite of the coach's goals, and I was adhering to the boundaries that they laid out as an honor system. But because I didn't have as much talent, I'm a cone, and they're rewarded. What does that feel like to a player? To know that there are people that are not even following the commandments or the recommendations, and here you are doing business. We're not asking you to start people who don't. I have a responsibility as a coach to put the best team on the field that I can for the sake of, particularly if I was at a high school or a junior high or a professional or a college level, I have a responsibility to the institution. I can't have my agenda trump their agenda. If their agenda is to win, I need to strategize and coach in such a way to help them reach their goals. That's not in conflict with our philosophy. Because as I said before, even if my only goal is to win, this is still the best philosophy. It's still the best philosophy to maximize people spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's the best philosophy for play, even if you don't care about God and all you care about is winning. Because it enhances people, enhances the process, gets people to thinking to the next player the next day and preparation with wholeheartedness without having the disability of demotivating things. Like continuous having before their face, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win, you got to produce, you got to produce. Of course, we all know we have to produce. That's inherent, is at some point we're trying to maximize ourselves. And being aware that maximization doesn't necessarily translate into playing time is a fabric of society. People get jobs and don't get jobs based on their productivity or capacity. We're not denying reality. We're just saying the reality is not going to be our motivator. We have a universal motivator with supernatural gas, supernatural instruction, that's the word, supernatural gas, that's the Holy Spirit, and a supernatural and eternal endpoint, which completely fits within the secular culture, even within wicked cultures, even with those that don't care about people at all other than production. The philosophy flies because it maximizes all things at all times at the highest level without debilitators, as we've attempted to articulate. Coaches, parents, youth sports, whatever, think about what it feels like and what that kid thinks about his part of the team when he is treated with dishonor or disrespect or disinterest for his maximizing his talent also, which unfortunately didn't translate into capacity that is playable. All we're saying is think about them. All we're saying is what I alluded to in the last segment. You have many parts. It's one team. The weaker parts are indispensable. The Parts that have less honor need special honor. When one part suffers, all suffer. And when you do play that guy, don't let your starters stand on the bench, take off their helmets, and look at the crowd. Keep them engaged in the process. Their backups, you've wanted to cheer them on. Now have the starters cheer them on and not make a joke about it. Most times it's a joke. Oh, let's get Johnny in the game. Whoa! What does that feel like to the kid? Have you ever thought, now if you've never been in that spot, you don't know what it feels like. It'd be good for you to get in a spot where you're treated poorly so you have an appreciation of being treated poorly, frankly. That's the nice part about struggling, is it makes you sensitive and appreciate things that don't happen when you always get your way. That's called spoiled. And that does not go well for marriages or for families, let alone eternity. How you treat players in terms of the scope of a game, practice time, game time. Are you thinking about, how can I get them in the game? How can I get them reps? How can I get them more reps? Why? Because they matter, not because it helps you win on the scoreboard. Similarly, scoreboard. Are you thoughtful at all when you're the team that is in a position of power, you're way ahead? Have you thought about the opponent? Have you thought about their humans? Have you thought about they have family and friends? Have you ever been beat 70-3 or 59-6 or played a team that had kept its starters in until 2 minutes left even though they were up by 50 points? Have you ever felt that? You might have felt like, hey, that's sport. That's just the way it is. Well, if you're tough enough to not be bitter about somebody running up on the scoreboard, fortunate for you, but the odds are your kids don't feel that way. And the odds are the parents don't feel that way. And the odds are you're not considering the hearts of the people that are supposedly under your care. Because if you're thinking about their heart, which is your job, 2 Chronicles talks about it when God asked Solomon, what do you want? Solomon hit the target. He said, give me wisdom and knowledge to lead your people, for who is able to lead such a great people as yours? Let's use the coaching example. It's a coach, could be a youth coach, could be a pro coach, could be at any level. When you have an attitude that you're a steward of the team under your care, whether they're 5 or 15 or 45, and if your attitude is, God, you've given me these people. Give me wisdom and knowledge to love your people. They aren't your people, they're his. They're his creation. To love your people and care for your people and provide for your people. All of your people. Not just the productive ones, all of them. All of the sheep matter. All of them. What did he say to John? What did he say in the book of John to Peter? He said, take care of my lambs, my little ones. Love my sheep, my bigger ones. Provide for my sheep. Take care of them. He said, provide and protect. Are you providing and protecting the flock under your care that's been given to you as a gift by God to love them like he loves them? Or do you think he's just about winning too, and he doesn't care if kids get on the field, and he doesn't care if they have a good experience? He doesn't care if they're rewarded in any way, even as appropriate. Do you think he just wants to win? Is he up there doing this kind of deal? I think not. I think he cares about sports a lot. When I hear people say God doesn't care about sports, what I see in the scriptures is he cares about everyone and everything they're involved in. And he wants the whole process to be biblical in all relationships and treatment of circumstances, etc. My sense is he's got his fingers in everything. He cares about sports a lot. He certainly cares about how his little ones are treated and his creation is treated, even if they're 55, let alone 95, let alone 5. This is our understanding. What's the bottom line? Get your people into the game and put down your stinking ego. Give people a chance to play as appropriate within the heart of the action. When you're way ahead, think about the other people. Think about what it feels like. You might say to me, well, here's the facts. The way rankings work in certain leagues, this is going to be pretty rare in terms of all the leagues of all levels, pro and college and high school and youth sports. But there are some leagues where the margin of victory dictates. Here'd be my comment to that guy who says that. Why not trust God with that issue? Why not show that you care about other people more than you care about winning? And let's see if God, by chance, doesn't reward you for being a guy who cares enough to not run up the score because you want to be a national champion. I would think if a guy did that, in my opinion, I wouldn't think, that fool, he just blew a national championship. He could have won by 70, he only won by 12, or that's not realistic. He only won by 21 or 28, and somebody else won by a larger margin and they got nosed out. And I'd say to that guy, good for you. You at some point have some balance and have eternity in the focus that you realize if you're national championship and go to hell is a lot worse spot than to be a runner-up or a semifinalist or a quarterfinalist who goes to heaven. Am I saying that national championships and championships are irrelevant or not legitimate, whatever? I'm saying not in comparison to eternity. That is what I'm saying. Do they matter? Absolutely. Do they matter and compared to eternity? Not at all. Consider that when you make decisions. Consider others over yourselves. That'd be a Bible verse that'd be good to apply.